What is up, guys? Dzeeff here, and today I'm very excited to bring you guys the opportunity at not just one, not just two, but three different sweepstakes, all in honor of the fact that the Dark Side of Dimensions is coming into Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, which you guys might have already heard about. So the first prize that you can win, which I'm sure you guys can already see here, is this gigantic Dark Magician Yu-Gi-Oh! Card. This thing's pretty cool. It's a little bit smaller than the ones that they give away at YCS's, but it's bigger than your average Yu-Gi-Oh! Card. Obviously, it's several feet tall, and all you have to do to win this card is write your favorite card from the Dark Side of Dimensions movie pack in the comment section below. Keep in mind here, I'm only offering this particular item to people that are living in the US. I don't really want this thing to get like bent or anything while it's in shipping, so I want it not to go too far outside of the United States. The other thing that you can win, a t-shirt, and this is a Duel Links t-shirt. It looks really slick. Same sort of thing applies here. All you have to do is write your favorite card from Dark Side of Dimensions movie in the comment section below. I'll draw two random people from all the comments on this video, and one of you will get the card, one of you will get the t-shirt. So pretty exciting stuff there that you guys don't really have to do that much to actually enter. If you want to go to something even grander than a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card, even grander than a t-shirt, you can actually potentially win a 4-day trip to Tokyo, and that's pretty insane. So there's a couple more criteria for that. I mean, I'll put them in the comment section below, so don't worry about that. Make sure you check the pinned comment with all the information for the terms and conditions. But basically what you have to be is you have to be over 18 years old, you have to be a US citizen, and you have to have a passport through 2021. If you meet all of those criteria, all you have to do is take a screenshot inside Duel Links of whatever your favorite card might be. So maybe you like a card that you've used competitively in the ranked mode. Maybe you like a card that you just like collecting. Maybe you like a card's artwork. It doesn't really matter. You just have to screenshot your favorite card from inside the Duel Links application and then send it to the link that I'll post in the description below, as well as a pinned comment. If you do that, your name might get drawn to win that trip to Tokyo, which would be really cool. Any Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan's dream, really. At this point, you guys have all the information that you need to enter any of the three sweepstakes. I'll leave a pinned comment with even more details just in case you guys are a little bit confused about something, so you guys know what you're doing, how to enter all three of those contests. For the rest of the video, though, I thought it would be kind of fun to go into Duel Links here and sort of look at some of my own favorite cards. This is the same process that you guys will be doing when you enter the Tokyo sweepstakes if you're eligible for that particular contest, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to do as well. You know, I've played lots of different decks in Duel Links. I've played over a course of many different formats, many different Forbidden and Limited lists, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to take a trip through memory lane here and look at some of my favorite cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. The first set of cards that I want to talk about are cards that were very generically good in a lot of different decks that I played. I wouldn't quite say they were ever my favorite card, but they were cards that I found a lot of success with. We have Enemy Controller, one of the more versatile spell cards in Duel Links. This card is super good, not only in Duel Links, but also in the TCG, and it was, when I joined the game, by far the most popular card in the entire game, and for a good reason. It is just so darn good. So you can block attacks with it, you can steal monsters for it, you can attack your opponent for game with those monsters, or you can tribute them for a tribute summon, or now you can use them for synchro summons. Just in general, you can do a lot of stuff with Enemy Controller. It is one of the best spell cards that has ever been released in Duel Links, and probably will remain that way for quite a while. As far as trap cards go, we had Treacherous Trap Hole. Now, I'll talk about this in a second, but the first deck that I picked up in Duel Links was Spellbooks, and the Spellbook strategy doesn't play any trap cards. It's all spell cards and a couple monster cards, so Treacherous Trap Hole was a natural fit. It was a very good piece of removal that deck desperately wanted in some of those opening hands, and I liked using it a lot. It would always catch my opponents off guard. They would be playing around the different Spellbook interruption cards, but they wouldn't really be playing around Treacherous Trap Hole, so whenever I drew it, it just totally blew my opponent out of the water. As for spell and trap card removal, which became more and more important as I played Duel Links, I think Cosmic Cyclone is like my go-to. I mean, it's 1,000 life points, but it doesn't really matter because you get to banish the card, which is super strong against a ton of cards that have graveyard effects. Overall, Cosmic Cyclone, in my opinion, is just one of the better spell and trap card removals in this game, and I enjoyed using it a lot. And yeah, so the first competitive deck that I played in Duel Links that I really spent a lot of time working with and playing in ranked mode and KC Cups and all that stuff was Spellbook. So I love this deck. I think you guys know that at this point. I actually own all of the Spellbook cards that I played in Duel Links in real life just because I love the deck so much, and it really was like my first introduction to the ranked mode in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. Some of the better cards there, you have Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, of course, you have Spellbook of Secrets, and of course, you have Silent Magician. What a cool card. So Spellbooks were a really good deck in the TCG back in 2013. They were one of the best decks of the format. They had some crazy powerful cards like Spellbook of Judgment, but I think what made them so interesting, to me at least, in this game is the addition of Silent Magician. So this card was not out in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG format when the spellbooks were actually getting played super competitively, but it did come out in Duel Links, and man, this card is so strong for any spellcaster strategy. I was just blown away by how good this card was. I hadn't really looked at it too much in the TCG. It was one of those cards that I liked the artwork of and thought the effect was cool, but I couldn't really find a deck for it to actually fit in. But in Duel Links, oh my gosh, this card was so powerful in spellbooks. It was just the card you always wanted in every single opening hand. Spellbooks is such a fun deck. I mean, it really is. It is so consistent, and especially at the time, I feel like it was more consistent than the other decks of the format. You had a lot of Fur Hires running around, you had a lot of Amazonists running around, you had a lot of rogue decks running around. I felt like this was one of the better rogue decks, and it really could dismantle boards piece by piece using cards like Silent Magician and Spellbook of Fate. The next deck that I really started to like was Vampires. So the Vampire deck is pretty much the exact opposite of Spellbooks in a lot of ways. Spellbooks, you have a lot of like controlling slower spell cards, and you don't play a lot of monster cards, just the Spellbook Magician of Prophecy as well as Silent Magician. Vampires, though, they played a whole slew of different zombie type monsters, and I love zombie type monsters. They're really cool, and these are cards that I just was so excited to play in Duel Links. You could just do so much. There was so much recursion, you had a lot of special summoning abilities, you had extra summons with Vampire's Domain. This deck really could dismantle boards piece by piece, maybe even better than Spellbooks depending on the matchup. What was so cool about this deck, though, to me personally, was Vampire Vamp. So this was the card that I felt made this deck so much better than the other decks of the couple formats that I played it for. This thing could remove basically anything your opponent had. A big Blue Eyes monster, a big Ancient Gear monster, whatever your opponent had that was more than 2,000 attack, you could just steal with Vampire Vamp and then just attack your opponent directly. It was a really big effect at the time, and a lot of people just couldn't play around it. I like this card a lot, and it really was the initial card that drew me to the Vampire strategy. But I think even beyond that, cards like Samurai Skull, which is now semi-limited, this was like the main consistency booster. I didn't really have many copies of Gozuki. I think I eventually pulled one copy, but this is like my main three of the main starter card that I wanted to see in every single hand. This thing just did everything. I mean, if you had a lot of monster cards, you could discard them for like your cards like Retainer as well as Familiar. If you had a lot of spell cards, you could set up your graveyard and add monster cards to your hand. It was just a really solid overall strategy. Vampires was a deck that I was really surprised by, because going into Duel Links, you know, I had heard of Spellbooks. They were a deck that was really popular back in the day, but I didn't really hear a lot about Vampires. So going into this game and discovering how much fun they were to play was a really exciting experience for me, and it led me to play Vampires for a lot of formats. I think this was a deck that I played the most in my entire experience playing Duel Links. And of course, I have to mention Six Samurai. Man, this was a deck, this was one of the only decks that I ever got on the first day that it came out, and I just had so much fun. I think that was right at the end of a season. I hit King of Games in just a couple hours. The new season started, and then I hit King of Games in just a few more hours. So back-to-back King of Games within a course of like 48 hours. So much fun. This deck just did things that other decks really couldn't deal with at the time. Eventually, people figured out more and more counters, but when it first came out, man, it was just so much fun. So you would summon multiple copies of Xian. You would summon Inishi on the first turn and bounce your opponent's cards. A lot of people were playing a lot of different builds of Six Samurais, which is one of the most intriguing things to me personally, coming from the TCG. Once again, a deck that was very, very strong, but when it was really good in the TCG back in like 2011, it didn't have access to some of these cards. So for example, Fuma was a card that I really hadn't experienced yet. This card wasn't really played in the old version of Six Samurais because it wasn't out yet, and man, this card is so good. So you can summon it off Dojo as long as you just summon any other Six Samurai monster, really strong there, instant Xian. But even beyond that, like, it wasn't just good because it was a tuner monster, it was good because it could flow into other Six Samurai monsters, and I thought that was a really neat ability on an already really strong deck. I even have this Rihan guy, and I know a lot of people didn't play this card, but I played this card and it came up every once in a while. I believe I even won a match getting to King of Games because of this card specifically. It didn't come up very often, but in the games that it did come up, you had to have this card in your extra deck. This deck was just so much fun. This is probably the deck that I built the most different versions for, because with Vampires and Spellbooks, I pretty much changed a couple cards over the course of me playing it, but from the get-go, I had a really good skeleton and I knew how to play the deck. But with Six Samurais, they just kept adapting to different matchups and different cards that were coming out, and it really was a deck that I changed so many times. Yes, you were always summoning Xian. Yes, you were always playing Kizan and stuff like that, but in general, it was just so many different builds with this one archetype. Really fun from a deck building perspective. For me personally, just playing Six Samurais against a lot of different matchups. Well, let's go back to Spellbooks for a second, because my number one favorite card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, even to this day, is Spellbook of Fate, the original card that made me want to play ranked mode in Duel Links. So I had played PvE for a while. I had played ranked mode way back when it first came out, and I had played a lot of casual duels, but as far as really sinking my teeth into playing ranked mode on a regular basis, hitting king of games almost every single season that I was playing, this was the card that made me want to do that. And the reason is that I looked at the format, I looked at Fur Hires, I looked at Amazoness, I said, okay, those decks are cool and they're really good and obviously really popular, but what's a counter to both those decks and as well as every other deck in the format? And to me personally, it really felt like Spellbook of Fate, in combination of course with the other Spellbook cards as well as Silent Magician. This card was so versatile in the TCG, and I just felt like in Duel Links, where there's a slightly smaller card pool, I felt it would be even more powerful, and it really, really was. So many people did not know how to play around Spellbook of Fate. I got so many awesome wins with this card. This is by far my favorite card in the entire game, just because of how iconic it is to me as a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links duelist. Anyway though, that's going to wrap up today's video. Please enter those 3 sweepstakes if you have a chance to. Like I said, the first 2, all you have to do is write in the comment section below what your favorite Dark Side of Dimensions movie pack card is. Pretty simple there. You can pick like Chaos Max or Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon or even Dark Magician, whatever you guys like from that set. There's so many awesome cards that there's a lot to choose from, but I'm sure you guys can figure out a way to narrow it down to just one. As for the other contests, you can definitely click that link below, and you have to sort of submit a screenshot of your favorite card from Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. There's also some other criteria there that you'll want to read on that link, and I'll also post it in that pinned comment below. Anyway though, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Goodbye.